Hello and welcome back to Discover the Unknown, a podcast by Cove Clothing that aims to inspire our listeners by bringing you incredible people with epic stories. I'm your host, Lydia Cook, and today I'm going to be chatting to Sam from Reika Bags, which is a sustainable carry company that will be emerging onto the market very soon. We caught up with Sam today to talk about sustainable business and who inspires him in the industry. So thank you so much for joining us today, Sam. It's really nice to have you on the podcast with us to talk about your brand. So I guess, first of all, kind of to inform the listeners, what is Reika and where did it all start?
Yep, thanks, Lydia. Not a problem, and thank you for having me. So Reika is a sustainable carry company based in the UK. So we make technical bags, travel bags from recovered ocean waste plastics, and we contribute to ocean initiatives in order to combat the global plastic crisis.
Nice. How is it that you actually recycle the ocean plastics? Is it like a really technical process that it happens through, or is it quite straightforward? Because I know a lot of brands are doing this, but when I imagine your bags, I'm kind of, they're quite sturdy and quite tough, aren't they? So how does that work? Do you know the kind of behind the scenes of that?
Yeah, so the process is very much the same as making ordinary fabrics. It's just at the start of the process, instead of taking virgin plastics, we use post-consumer, which are a mix of plastics from recycling plants and collected plastics from taken from the oceans. But essentially, these, whether it's plastic bottles or whether it's a nylon-based plastic, they're taken. So the plastics are taken and then they're shredded down and turned into pellets, and then these pellets are then spun and woven into fabrics, and then they're either treated with a waterproof coating, or if there's a surface-based coating, in the same way that a ordinary fabric would be. But the only difference is that at the start of the process, the source of materials that's used, rather than being virgin plastics, is ocean plastics or post-consumer, whatever you'd like to call it. But yeah, it's a technical process, but it's becoming a lot more common now than it was when we first started this, which is great to see.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed like a big kind of push in a lot of companies to start using plastic waste rather than kind of creating it right from its source, isn't there? So it's amazing to see that, and it's great that your company is a part of that. But I guess on that kind of sustainable topic, has it always been a part of you, do you think? Did you kind of always imagine that you'd end up going down a sustainable business route in your life, or was it something that kind of developed through your surroundings and I don't know, through a degree or anything like that? I guess what I'm asking really is how did Riker grow? Like, how was it born?
Yeah, so it's a long story, so I'll try and keep it as sweet as possible. But essentially, my original background was very much more in the corporate world. I essentially developed software, but it wasn't something that like fueled me. There was no real passion behind it. But then I did a degree in product design, and soft goods isn't taught in the UK. So I was very much ventured into the unknown on my own. But actually, the motivation for wanting to sort of tackle the soft goods industry was the fact that my mum actually was a seamstress or pattern cutter back in the day, and I always had a big interest in sewing machines, how they worked, and really breaking it down. So it's almost paying homage and legacy to my mum's industry. So I got into this off the back of that. But yeah, so I did my degree in product design, and it was very much, you were almost pushed down this route of either making furniture or something that was 3D printed and required expensive tooling, etc. And that just really wasn't for me. And yeah, I ended up down this route, and it was like why just make something for the sake of making it? Why not try and tackle a problem? And this was 3 years ago now, and I first discovered the possibility of using recycled materials. And back then, like I say, it really wasn't common. Nobody was really doing it, and it's become over the last 3 years very much more mainstream. More brands are doing it, and it's way more accessible because the price of the materials, the raw materials themselves, were around double cost per meter, cost per yard compared to what they are now. It's still way more expensive to produce from recycled materials, but it's definitely more accessible, and it allows brands to do it um, in a more economic way. Whereas before, it just wasn't attainable because the price you were pricing yourself out of the market because you had to, because the cost of goods was so high. Um, but yeah, and then we ended up sorry down this route, um, and it's become something that's so passion led rather than financially led. Like obviously, all businesses need to make money, but yeah, Riker is just every day is what I think about. Every day, every minute kind of thing. I can't switch off. And that's really what drives me rather than previous businesses where it's just been all about the bottom line and sort of making money, which is natural in business, but it's great to have a much bigger cause. And if we can make a small impact on the plastic crisis, then that's a great thing. And not just that, but educating consumers to expect more from brands and setting their expectations much higher, because we've become so accustomed to looking for the cheapest product that just ticks that one feature box, but it's not always the best product for the planet and not always the best product in general, but we've become so accustomed to cheaper is better, and it's not always the case.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that you pick up on the point that this business that you have is passion led rather than financially led. And that's really something that I've started to notice in a lot of brands that I work with, sustainable brands that I work with, but also, I've spoken to a couple of brands already on this podcast who talk about it in a similar way, where these companies, these amazing sustainable and ethical companies, are doing it out of passion and what they care about and what they want to see change in the world rather than that financial benefit. And I don't know about you, but I think with that becoming such a strong part of businesses these days, and the companies, new companies in particular, rather than ones that are already standing and trying to kind of switch to be sustainable for the look rather than actually wanting to. I've noticed that these companies that have passion for it are starting to kind of dilute those other ones, and it's becoming like a real topic in consumerism that people are starting to buy from companies that are passionate rather than just saying that they've become sustainable. I mean, I think I said that in a very complicated way, but basically, I completely agree with you. And I wonder, have you seen that yourself from someone who's already in that industry? Have you noticed that more and more brands are starting to grow through passion rather than finance?
Yeah, so as well as Riker, I am a soft goods designer by trade as well, and a lot of the brands that I was working with were going down that route, and they were legacy brands that had been around for a long time. Everything was done to a budget, and you were doing things based on meeting a target cost price rather than necessarily making the best product or from the best materials or looking after the people. But it's very easy because this industry isn't so regulated in regards to sustainability, that you can quite easily have a full range of products that aren't sustainable, but then latch on to this sustainable one category, and then all of a sudden use that to spin your marketing, and all of a sudden you're changing people's perception on you as a brand and making people think that you're a sustainable brand, when actually other things that you're doing aren't so sustainable. and yeah, they're using it very much from a marketing angle, which is business. But if the root isn't there, that you're not sustainable to the core, it's kind of like, well, what's the point if you're essentially just offsetting all the not so great things in the business with just the 1%, which I completely understand that on these large multi-level conglomerates, like it's really hard to actually implement that throughout the whole supply chain because there's so many existing procedures and suppliers and product lines that exist, that it becomes really complicated to switch everything and flip it on its head. So these smaller brands that are starting up and that have sustainability and ethical practices at their core, it becomes a lot easier to push that in a way that consumers react to, because it's sort of in their DNA rather than just trying to evolve and adapt as a brand, because that's where your sort of mission and your drive it's born from. So I think from a brand perspective, people latch onto that and can connect with that a lot better than these brands that have been around for ages that are just doing it just because it's the trend and what's in and what's easily marketable.
I completely agree. I think even from the outside, people can start to notice that. And obviously, there's a big push to talk about greenwashing, which I've noticed more and more recently. It's something that's being spoken about a lot on social media and things like that. So I think, yeah, watching brands grow organically and kind of rise organically through actually being passionate about sustainability is noticeable in the marketing, I think, as well as in the kind of actual products and the quality of the products. But it's definitely something that I think is hard for people to look for if they don't know where to start. I think obviously myself and you are in the industry and know a lot about it and can kind of pick up on it quite quickly. So I wondered, as someone who owns, this great brand, do you have any key tips to give to the listeners who might be looking out for that kind of greenwashing and that marketing side of sustainability that's maybe not telling the whole truth?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that you can do. So, for example, it's not always the case, but some brands obviously offer transparency with the manufacturers they use, um, which I understand why a lot of brands don't do this, and it's something that we want to do because there's obviously it's a competitive industry, and you don't want to give away suppliers because finding suppliers is the hardest thing. So yeah, so transparency in manufacturers, whether they've got ethical certifications or haven't, because ethical certifications such as Blue Sign are really hard to obtain. So it's something that factories often shout about. So if a brand is willing to show who they're working with, then that's something that's easily identifiable. Of course, whether the brand is using recycled fabrics, the coatings that they're using. Of course, this goes beyond just soft goods products. But yeah, if they're using recycled materials or they're using plant-based materials, or alternatives to plastics, all of these things are obviously things to look out for. But I think a telltale sign is whether it's throughout their whole range of products and whether it's honest, or whether it's just a case of, like I say, it's the 1% that they're trying to make up for. And this isn't like a slagging battle. It's not a case of brands are terrible because they only have this 1%. It's great that some are making a shift in the right direction, and it's not going to happen overnight. But yeah, it is really tricky. I think until there's some kind of regulation where you kind of can't shout about being this and that until a third party has approved that. I think it's going to be really tricky because in terms of just fabrics alone, you could say that something was recycled and there's no way of possibly ever knowing. Of course, if it was packaging wise, then the actual visual appearance is slightly different from plant-based packaging to plastic-based. But again, it's really hard to identify, and you're very much placing trust in that brand. And I guess that's where it falls back to being this small, organic, sustainable brand, and having that community relationship with your audience, because they already engage with you and trust you, so they're sort of taking your word for it. Whereas with the larger brands, if you don't have that, you're very much just reading black and white and hoping that that's correct. So it is really tricky, but so long as you're making educated decisions based on what's put in front of you, that's all we can really do.
I think those are really useful tips, and I think, like you say, even when you do know what to look for, actually, it can still be hard to kind of figure out exactly what's going on. But I think with that information in mind, it's definitely a lot easier to make that informed decision when you are being a consumer and buying from these companies. But I had a really good chat with a friend of mine the other day who owns Origin Africa, and one of the things she was saying was that in this world of sustainable and ethical business, it's a really key factor, and something that she, like herself as part of that industry, is really proud of, is that all of these companies stick together, and it's almost like there's less competition in these organic smaller brands, because they're all fighting for the same thing, and that is a better future in terms of business, better business and better buying and all of that. So I guess on that kind of on that line, do you have businesses that you've really looked up to, or even influencers or celebrities that you think are kind of leading this fight for a sustainable future that you really look up to and kind of base Riker on maybe some of their ethoses and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're definitely right in what you're saying about other brands and people that are of the same mindset. Everyone's really a lot more willing to help out. What if it's a question, or, for example, we work with some great people who I know you follow on the other side of the world, such as Nolan and Show. And these are like amazing people, but they're so willing to help and support, even though we're only a small brand. And these are like celebrities within the space. They're so willing to help and support because of the mission and trying to create this better environment. So yeah, everyone's so much more on board than if we were to just be this corporate entity approaching them with nothing different, and not sort of fighting for a better planet. I think they definitely wouldn't be as open minded to helping and supporting, and that goes for, again, other brand owners. And I owe everything to my network, and sort of where I am now is as a result of that. And I think people are so much more approachable within the space because, as you say, everyone's fighting for the same thing. It's not, and I have noticed that like other brands within my space are so competitive. People that were sort of starting out at the same time as me, and then it's almost as if like, oh, if you get more likes on your post or you have more things going on, it you notice that there's like a drop off. So people stop supporting as much, and those people that you used to speak to so frequently, there's very much this like rivalry going on, which I don't really believe in. And that then they're not, the brands I'm thinking of aren't necessarily within the sustainability space, but it's definitely a thing where we stick together a lot more. But going back to your question regarding sort of brands that's inspired me, Riker was also very much born on the ethos of the founder of Patagonia. So I'm really not a reader. I'm more of like an audiobook podcast kind of guy. But I read the book Let My People Go Surfing, so 4 or 5 years ago now, and that very much inspired this journey. And it was just about sort of looking after people you work with and fighting for a better planet, leaving the world a better place than you found it. That's in a simplified term, that's sort of what we're all about. So yeah, I would definitely say Patagonia. because they're still privately owned. Everything that they've done for many years has been putting the planet first before it was this cool sort of buzzword. So yeah, I would definitely say Yvon Chouinard of Patagonia. I'm hoping I've said his name right there. It's been some years since I've read the book, but if anyone's listening and hasn't read that book or listened to the audiobook, I would definitely recommend it, and that's Let My People Go Surfing. The audiobook is great as well because it's actually it's narrated by himself, so you really connect with him and sort of what he was thinking when he founded Patagonia and that whole journey. And I think if we could all take a leaf out of their book, then the way that we do things is definitely going to be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, nice. I've heard a lot about that book actually. I think quite a few people that I've spoken to in this realm of things have mentioned his book, and I think it's definitely something that I'm going to have to look into myself and get involved with. But I guess as well, talking about Riker in terms of, you've talked about the story that you've had so far with it, but is there a vision that you have for where you see Riker in the future? Is it a certain kind of people that you imagine taking it around, or is it, images in your head, or, a success story? Where do you see your brand going? Where do you really hope that it ends up?
Yeah. So our initial product offering is all based around travel, which, funnily enough, has been a terrible timing with the state that the world's currently in. But I'm certain things will get better. But we very much believe in the saying that life won't wait, because tomorrow isn't promised, and we just believe in getting out there and seeing as much as possible. And sort of our products are just enabling that. So in terms of sort of where things would be ideal, obviously everything that we can do to improve our supply chain, because of course when you're still small, there's only certain things that you can do in terms of meeting minimums, and you can't necessarily make the perfect product for the planet, because every product that's consumed is bad. But it's about reducing that impact as much as possible. And if we can improve our processes going forward with our future iterations of products and future ranges, implementing new technologies that may be developed in the future, then that's going to be a step in the right direction. But that's sort of short-term goal. But long-term, if we can just continue to grow organically and stick to our values, then that will be a dream come true for me. But yeah, I've loved every minute of the ride so far, and long may it continue.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting to hear, what people set for their goals, and then actually, maybe you'll look back at this one day and think, wow, I smashed that and I did more than that. So happy days.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm sure it will, having seen the brand so far and had the chance to work with you and stuff, I think it's going to do really well, and hopefully pioneer some other great businesses that will look up to you for inspiration, as you do with Patagonia and things like that. But bit of a kind of off topic, well, on topic, but not to do with Riker, I guess, in terms of, you know, having chatted to you before, you love adventure as much as I do, and as much as people in this industry. So do you have like an adventure that you've had before that really sticks with you and kind of gives you the drive to take this brand along?
it's really hard because you get so swallowed up in the process.
I think when you ask about adventure, a lot of people imagine, oh, surely it must be, the most exotic place you've ever been, or like the hardest thing you've ever done, climbed a mountain or something. I don't know. But I think what I'd love to preach to people is that adventure isn't, it doesn't have to be that big. It could literally be a moment in time where you stepped out of your comfort zone, which is what this podcast is about, and you and your sustainable business and things like that. Or, maybe it is something crazy. Maybe you free soloed some crazy rock or something like that. But I think, for me, I've traveled across Asia, and I've done America and bits of Europe and things like that. And they've all been absolutely incredible. Being in Asia by myself what was I, 18, 19-year-old girl was quite, quite hardcore at the time. But I think for me, like, myself and my mum and my brother, when we were younger, we didn't have much money, and between the ages of 7, 8, and 9, when everyone else was going off on their family holidays to Spain and things like that, we would walk sections of the coast of Cornwall and wild camp and not pay for accommodation, and cook up, what was it called, cup of soup and cup of pasta and things like that along the coast, hide in farmers' fields and all that sort of stuff. And for me, that is, the best adventure I've had. And that was just like trooping along the coast of Cornwall, which, to some people might not sound that big, but it's what you learn from it, isn't it? It's how you interact with that time in your life, and I guess how it lives on in you. I think when people ask me questions these days and kind of talk to me about things and ask for my insight on stuff, I end up talking about nature and the world in a way that I think was learned through that time, before I even got to Asia and things like that. So I think, gone off on a bit of a tangent, but that's what I imagine when I think of adventure. And I think, it could be absolutely anything. It could be this journey that you've had with the brand. That's a big enough adventure as it is.
Yeah. I was literally going to say, if we're going back to that, like, having thought about it, like, Reika is literally the biggest adventure of my life. Because every day you don't know what's going to face you. And I think that's, like, adventure is just what you make it. Like, it doesn't have to be this elaborate story about meeting some random local and being taken up some dirt road and like some crazy story. It doesn't have to be that. It's just about sort of, yeah, like you say, pushing yourself to the limit and stepping outside of your comfort zone, and having a story to tell, which I think we've both definitely got many a story to tell. But yeah, there's so many different interpretations of adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that's kind of what we want this podcast to help with people is, you don't have to have done some insane marathon or, whatever example it is. It doesn't have to be that. Adventure can literally be anything, and you can be inspired by any part in your life as long as you push yourself out of your comfort zone. Um, and hopefully by listening to you chat away about this business that you have and kind of your insight into the sustainable world of, all of this stuff, I really think it will help people to, to see that they could also do it. Maybe there's someone listening now that thinks, oh, I've had that idea in the back of my head for so long, but I've been so scared to jump to do it. And, by listening to people like yourself and the other people that I've chatted to, I think it will be amazing for someone to feel that desire to suddenly jump for it and absolutely just put themselves all in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's been really good to chat to you. And I guess to finish off, do you want to kind of tell people when your bags are launching and how to find them, and things like that?
Yeah, so just to touch on your previous point, like, I think that would be the most amazing thing if someone out there listening is thinking about an idea or doesn't believe that they can do it. Like, people look at me as if I'm some kind of messiah and I had everything worked out and I knew exactly what I was doing and I've got all this experience, but I'm literally just human. And I think if you have any idea, big, small, whatever, if you literally just break everything down into small attainable goals and just see where you end up and just tick one thing off after another, whether it's starting today and choosing a name for something, or if it's a brand, picking a logo, or whatever it is, like that is all this brand building experience is: finding a supplier, sending off a tech pack, creating it, learning how to do it, learn how to create a website. All these things, they're not, yes, I had a good foundation, but it wasn't a case of I had all these things worked out, I had all the right people, I knew what I was doing from the start. Really wasn't. It was just a case of the process evolving and learning more about myself as I went, as much as learning all these new skills and what was that, what was what. But yeah, I just wanted to add that, just because I think people are so caught up in the rat race and believing that they they couldn't possibly achieve these things. These people that they look up to, they couldn't possibly do that thing. But it's really not the case. And all these great people that have come before us, we're in the same process. Yes, of course, privilege exists, and there's certain opportunities that are restricted to certain people, etc. But I really think that anyone is capable of doing and achieving great things if they simply just put their mind to it and throw themselves completely in. There's no point being 10% in. Just literally just take that leap, because, like I say, tomorrow isn't promised, and life won't wait. So I think just go out and grab it by the horns. But yeah, sorry to go off on a tangent there, but
No, it's good.
yeah, what was your what was your the closing point?
Yeah, sorry, no. I mean, I'm glad you added that in, because I think, that was like some amazing speech to get someone riled up to go do it. So thank you for that.
Do it.
But
Do
no, I was just going to ask, for the people listening who might be interested in seeing your brand, what are your social medias, your website, and when is it launching? How can people keep up with you?
The website recently launched, so you can go and get notified regarding updates and confirm launch date as and when that happens. We're hoping to launch at the end of August, and we'll be launching through the crowdfunding platform Kickstarter, where you'll be able to purchase at a 30% discount when we launch. So you can sign up for that discount if you visit our website just by entering your email. The website is www.reikabags.co.uk, and that's REIKA bags.co.uk, or you can find us on social media, and that's at Reika Bags, again, REIKA. But yeah, it's very much a case of sort of playing everything by ear at the minute with the travel situation, but we're aiming for August just on the basis that things are picking up, and we're sort of trying to look for a safe route to market after all the hard work that's gone into this development journey. But I'm also contactable at SJC Wetton. That's WHETTON. If anyone has any questions or just has this burning desire to talk about sustainability, then I'm always reachable on there.
Amazing. I love how you call it a burning desire to talk about sustainability, because it's definitely a thing. And I'm one of those people, hence why we're here now. No,
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you
yeah.
so much. And I definitely would recommend for people to follow you, having been able to kind of join you on your journey a little bit. As people might notice, if they went on your website, you might see my face popping up here and there. But it's been amazing to work with you. Yeah. No, it's been amazing to work with you and bring you on here. And I really hope people feel inspired by what you've been up to. So yeah, thank you so much for joining, and I'll catch up with you again soon.
Not a problem. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me, Lydia.
Thanks. Bye.